This video here is all going to be about like an introduction to algebra, so introduction to our new unit. I want to start off with a question here, and I'm assuming we get a lot of these questions, or I get a lot of these on my Facebook or on my social media. And they basically say things like this, so 90% will fail to answer, or can you solve this? And they have a number of sort of symbols, and they sort of add up to or subtract together to equal a certain number, and you've got to try and work out what the final question is, okay? So you understanding what those symbols are, what they mean up to, and what they add up to. Basically what this is algebra. So they try and confuse us by using different symbols, by having them different answers, and you need to break it down and to work out what those unknown symbols are. And basically what this is as I mentioned, is algebra. So if you can understand what algebra is and how to use it, you'll be able to answer these sort of questions as they come through. So let's start off with the first question. I'm going to get you to write this down in your book. And the question is, what is algebra? So algebra is the part of mathematics in which letters and other general symbols are used to represent numbers and quantities in formula or equations. So just like up here, we have letters or symbols which represent other numbers. So this star here represents a number, this fan here represents a number. We need to try and find out what those symbols mean, and that is algebra. So this video here, we're going to look at a bit more in regards to the different terms used. So it's important that we understand a few of the definitions, and then we'll go into a bit more detail. So I'll need you to write these down as we go through. So make sure you pause it, write them down, and then we can go through step by step. So I'll quickly read through these first. So pronumerals are the letters or symbols used to represent a number. So in this case, above, you'll see the letters, we've got symbols that represent different numbers. In most cases, they just use a letter. So you might see A plus 3 equals 7. In this case, A here is a pronumeral. It's a letter or a symbol used to represent a number that we don't know. And that is what we refer to as the unknown. So that is the actual number that the pronumeral represents. So here in this case, the pronumeral is A, and the actual number that it represents is 4, which we would have worked out as we've gone through. Next we have the variable. It is usually represented by a pronumeral, and it describes a number whose value can change. So a variable can represent any number, and we'll get to a few more details of them later on, but I'll just get you to write down that term there. Next we're going to move into the actual parts of algebra formula. The first one here is a constant, so it is a number by itself. In this case, if we use this symbol again, the number by itself would be the 3. So it's a number that, like all other numbers, is just a constant one. We also then have terms. So terms have one or more pronumerals. Remember, these are the symbols or the letters that represent an unknown, or may be just a number. So if we have, as an example, we have 3a plus b plus 4c equals 18. What we have here is different terms. So the terms here are one or more pronumerals or just a number. So there's a term, and there's a term. So we have 3 terms in this one, and that's what we'd say. The next one is coefficients, the number written in front of a pronumeral. So the sign of the number is included. For example, in this case, 9x minus 3y. So the coefficient here is the 9. See, the 9 is in front of the x, and also the coefficient of y is negative 3. So see how they've included that negative 3 there? That's what we need to make sure we add in the sign for those cases. In this case, the coefficient of a is 3, the coefficient of b would be 1, so that will always be 1, and the coefficient of c is 4. The last two that we need to make sure we understand the difference between these two, and that is expressions and equations. Now, expressions are algebraic expressions is a mathematical phrase which contain numbers, variables, and operators. Expressions are made by adding or subtracting terms. Expressions may include one or more terms, and the equal sign is not used, and that's the key learning there. So expressions, if you just had to remember 2 things, expressions do not include equal signs, equations do. So this here, because it has an equal sign, that's going to be an equation. If we got rid of that and we just had 3a plus b plus 4c, that would be an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign. So opposite there, therefore, is equations. They are created by showing 2 algebraic expressions which are equal to one another. Equations use the equal sign. So it's really important we understand that there's a difference between the equal sign. The equal sign doesn't just mean answer. It sort of means that the 2 sides of that equation are equal. So in this case, this side of the equation has to be equal to this side. It doesn't necessarily mean we just give an answer. It means that they have to be equal on both sides. So we'll just write a few of these, answer a few of these questions, and then we'll get into some tasks. First one is list the individual terms in the expression 3a plus b plus 13c. So list the individual terms. We have 3a, we have b, and we have 13c. State the coefficient of each pronumeral in the expression. So we've done that one before. So the coefficient of A is 3, the coefficient of B is 1, and the coefficient of C is 13. And then finally here, give an example of an expression with exactly two terms, one of which is a constant term. So again, it's an expression, so it's not going to have an equal sign. So I could write 2a, that's a term, and the next one must be a constant term, so that is effectively just a number. So I'm at 2a plus 5. Okay, so I've got my two terms, 2a and 5, which I know is a constant. So make sure again you write down these definitions. That's the most important thing, and we're going to start to break these down and get into a bit more detail as we progress.